So in this video, what I want to do is I'm going to show you how to use MyMath Lab to do one of these quadratic problems. And this particular problem is asking you to find the vertex and axis of symmetry for the quadratic function given. And then there's other parts to where you have to use the characteristics that we learned in our notes. So you can determine whether the graph is concave up or concave down, and you're going to eventually graph the actual quadratic function. So we're looking at the equation, which is f of x equals x minus 1 squared minus 1. And the first thing we want to do here is we want to realize that this is in vertex form. And remember when we talk about vertex form, that's f of x is equal to x minus h squared plus k, where your vertex is always going to occur at the opposite of h and the value of whatever k is. So in this particular case, our h is -1, so the opposite of that is going to be a +1. And our k value is -1. So here we're going to put in, just leave that value the same, that's -1. So let's go back to MyMath Lab and type that in. And so we need to write it as a point. And so we'll do 1, -1. And find the negative. And we'll go ahead and check that answer. Now, the next part asks us for the axis of symmetry. So again, let's go look at the axis of symmetry. Remember that the axis of symmetry is always where the x value is, or the h value is for the vertex. So the axis of symmetry is a line or an equation. So we need to write it as x equals whatever our actual h value is here. In this case, it's x equals 1. So we always write it as x equals h. So let's go back to that. Type that in as x equals equal sign. There we go. 1, the actual h value. Now, the next part is the graph concave up or down? So remember, to find out if the graph is concave up or down, what we're going to do now is look at the value in front of the parentheses. And normally there's an s called our a value. So if there is no a value, it's understood to be 1. So here we want to know if the a value is either going to be positive, which means that it's greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, it's concave up, which the graph looks something like this. The parabola will open upward. If the a value is less than 0, it's negative, which means that it is concave down. And what that does to the graph is it turns the U shape upside down. So if we look here, notice that there isn't an a value. It's understood to be equal to 1, which is positive. So that means the graph opens up. Now, the last part says to actually graph the function. And so to graph this function, we're going to have to go to click to enlarge the graph. And we're going to plot our vertex using the parabola tool. So there is a parabola tool, which is here, the vertical parabola tool. And if you notice in the corner, we're going to try to get this to be our actual vertex. And I'm struggling with this a little bit, so I'll keep trying until I get it right. But I want my vertex to be at 1, -1. So going through this, trying to plot that 1, -1, if you have a mouse, it's probably easier. I'm on my iPad right now, so it makes it a little bit more challenging to use my fingers. But if you look in the corner, it's telling you where I'm at. And right here, I'm at 1, -1. I accidentally pressed the clear button. So we're still trying to get to that 1, -1 value. That's not it either. Let's see if I can get it here. So now we are at 1, -1. Still trying to get it. And I've hit it there. And now I go up 1 over 1. Using that, remember that a value was just 1. So that basically is a slope. So we'll go up 1 over 1. And we'll plot from there. And then we'll save that. We'll graph that. And so remember, when I went up 1 over 1, I was at 1, -1. I went to 2, 0. If I want to graph this by hand, I could do the exact same thing. And so graphing it by hand, we're going to use the characteristics that we know already. So when we make our graph, the first thing we want to do is we want to plot our vertex. And our vertex is at the value 1, -1. And then I'm going to draw my imaginary line or my axis of symmetry through the x value. And that's x equals 1. And so here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a value either on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of those x values. So if I go to the left, it's 0. If I go to the right, it's 2. So I can pick 0 or 2. I'm going to take the value 0 here. And when I take the value 0, all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into that x value up there for it. So when I do that, it's 0 minus 1 is -1. Then I'm going to square that -1, and I get a +1. Then I'm going to do 1 minus 1, that's 0. So one value on here, my x value is 0, my y value is 0. 0, 0 is on this graph. To get there, I went up 1 and left 1. So using the axis of symmetry, I can go right 1, I can go right 1 and up 1 and get the same point. And this is how I'm going to graph my parabola by hand. So you just need to pick a point either to the right or to the left of the axis of symmetry and graph from there.